Hi, Dr. Semmler. How are you? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you again, too.
So I want to talk to you about changes in the medical field since you've been in it. When you started, first, how long ago was it when you started, and how many women physicians were there?
When I started, I actually graduated medical school in 96. There were a lot of females in the medical school, in class with me. I would say it wasn't 50-50, maybe still 60-40 or 70-30 with less females. But the specialties that they encouraged you to go into at the time were not the same as for the men. They would, push the men into surgery or, orthopedic surgery. And the females, they would say, oh, you should go into family practice or OBGYN. And not saying that there's anything wrong with those specialties.
Sure.
But it was just that they really pushed you in a different direction,
Yeah,
depending if you were male or female back then.
interesting. Yeah. Do you feel that from then to now there have been significant changes? Has that changed?
I definitely. I mean, in the 25 years that I've been out and practicing, when I joined my practice at South Jersey Radiology, I was actually the first female partner in the practice. They had never had a female partner.
Wow.
I mean, that was a big deal at the time. And now we have several. And I also see it in other specialties. Um, like I said, at the time, they would push the men into orthopedic surgery and they discouraged the women from going into something like that. They would say, oh, you need to be more available for your family. Whereas now I see several orthopedic surgeons when I'm in the hospital. So it's nice to see that change. I know I've talked to you about this before too in my previous ones, but I have my book, What Little Girls Can Be, from when I
Wow.
was a child. And it cracks me up because little girls can be a nurse. Little girls can be a stewardess. You can be a ballerina. You
Wow.
can be a cook. You can be a fashion designer. You can be, what's this one? I don't know. Oh, in the movies and on TV,
Wow.
a secretary and a painter.
Wow.
But nowhere in there is there rocket scientist or, a
Yeah.
surgeon, any of that stuff. So
So
it's
is
just
that your book when you were young?
Yeah, this was my book when I was a kid, and this is what I had. And it's actually by Hallmark, but I don't even know what year it
Yeah.
was copyrighted. But this was my book when I was a kid. Oh, and here she is vacuuming. So,
That's all right.
but this, back in the day, this was what we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you read that book and decide you want to be a doctor?
Right, exactly. Honestly, I mean, I broke my thumb when I was 7, and I did go to see the orthopedist, and so that always interested me because he showed me the X-rays from that age. So at that point, I don't know if that just it's triggered something in me, but
Yeah.
that's
All right. So you were the first female at SJRA.
the first female partner. They did
First
have,
female partner. So,
did
so what
have.
was that like? Was that
Uh,
difficult?
Honestly, it was not. At our practice, I never felt unwelcome or treated differently. Honestly, I just felt treated like one of the guys, which, I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Yeah.
I never felt unwelcome there or, that I was working harder or treated differently than anyone
Oh, yeah.
else.
Good. Is that something that you set your sights on and went after?
I think it depends on, again, like I said, for women, they always encouraged you into these specialties so you would have more time to have children and more time to spend, raising your kids
Yeah.
versus for surgery. And for me, we never wanted children.
Mhm.
That was, a decision we made when my husband and I were, younger. And so for me, that wasn't as big a deal. So I think that changed the way I looked at my future compared to another female, and that I didn't feel that I had to do things differently than the men in the group.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you approach someone and say, hey, consider me for partner? Or
At the
did they
time, I
consider?
applied for positions that were partnership track. I didn't apply for any jobs that were not
Okay,
um, going to be a full partner position, because that was, yeah, something I had set my sights on. Something that was one of my goals was, to be a partnership in a practicing
sure.
uh, in a position. So.
Okay. So when you look back over the 25 years, what do you think's the most significant change for women in medicine?
Well, like I said, one of the big changes is I do see women in all of the specialties now, which is, a welcome change for me. I feel good about that from
Oh,
when I started out. And like I said, there weren't people for me to look up to. There weren't female surgeons. When you did your rotations in medical school, it was all with male surgeons and male orthopedists and male, this and that. So it was, you didn't have someone to look up to. And now I think the females coming up now, that is something that really makes me happy, that they have role models in all specialties that they can look up to. So that's a change that I think is really welcome.
yeah. So did you experience sexism at all when you were working your way up?
Not where I am now, but in
Yeah.
training, yes, all the time. I mean, 25 years ago, it was a different culture. It was a very different culture, and that was accepted, unfortunately. I know I've told the story when I did your lectures before, when we did the women's empowerment before, about when there was one hospital, and it was in New Jersey, where when you were on call at night, they had a blow up doll, hanging from the ceiling. So if you were, if you had a break during the night and you went to the on call room to take a little nap, above you was a giant naked blow up doll, and that was considered acceptable back then. I mean,
Wow.
nowadays it would be like, insane. So
Be on the
so yeah,
front page of the news.
right, right.
Yeah.
It would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, it's not that we accepted it, but there wasn't really a path to go against it at that time. People say, why didn't you just say
Yeah.
something? But it was a very different time and a different culture. So that wasn't, if you spoke out against it back then, you'd be a troublemaker and you'd be branded as someone nobody wanted. Now, if someone comes forward with something, it's brought out into the open and paid attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So who helped you along the way?
It's interesting because in my family, like my father never went to college. My mother went to college. She was a school teacher. So there were no doctors in the family. There was nothing. I just always, from the time I was 5 years old, I would walk around and saying, I want to be a doctor. And so um, my parents were very supportive along the way. I did work for a physician when I was in high school and in college. I would work in the office, at night. And when I was off school, I would work there full time. And he was very supportive. And I learned a lot from him when I was younger, not just about being a doctor, but about being a good person, about helping people and, all of that. So, I mean, there were physicians along the way that helped me out, um, that made me really enjoy what I do.
Yeah. Was there any point in your career where you were able to see another female physician who was ahead of you that you could look to?
Um, in residency, yeah, not in med school, but once I was in residency, there were some female residents that were, only a year or two ahead of me, so it wasn't far advanced. That were very intelligent and very caring, and I learned a lot from them as well.
And do you now take on that responsibility of being that role model for
I
young?
try. It's not always, especially now, it's not always easy because like students, we're not allowed to have students around us, and because of the virus you have to be far apart. So in the past, when we've received requests to have students or residents or whoever come and sit with us and learn from us, we would say yes. And right now it's kind of complicated. So yes, I try to always encourage people, even just like if a friend comes up to me and says, oh, my daughter wants to go into radiology or whatever, then I
Yeah.
say, well, tell them to give me a call. I'd be more than happy to talk with them, tell them the whole experience. And so I try to do that. It's just this year it's been very hard.
Sure. Yeah, as many things, yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, so when you're talking to a young woman who's thinking about going into medicine, what would you tell her?
go for it. Definitely. Now things are so different. I mean, if you had asked me back in the day, when I was sleeping with the blow up doll, I still would have said go for it, because if that's what you want to do, you should do it no matter what other people think. So now I would say the same thing. If someone came to me and said, oh, I want to be a physician, I want to go into surgery, I want to go into radiology, I want to go into OBGYN, whatever, I would say then that's what you should do. If that's what you want, then you go for it, and that's what you should do. And don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anyone tell you you should do something else.
Great. That's great. It's always great talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.